All right, hi everyone. Welcome to today's information session for True Patriot Love Expedition Himalayas 2018. My name is Tanya Haas, and I am the Health and Wellness Writer here at MedCan. We will be discussing the True Patriot Love to Mount Everest Base Camp and Nepal's Lobuche East Summit. For those who do not know, True Patriot Love is a national charity that supports military families, funds community-based programs, and contributes to the Canadian Institute for Military and Veteran Health Research, and MedCan is proud to be a supporter of its missions and programs. So building on the success of previous TPL expeditions, this trip will bring together active and veteran members of the Canadian Armed Forces with business and community leaders. Working as a team, participants will face the physical, emotional, and mental roadblocks together. Now, our three presenters today are Ben Webster, Jaime Wilson, and Rob Turner. So let's look and learn more about our presenters. Ben Webster. He flew all the way in from Ottawa yesterday. We're so honored to have him here. And he is one of the world's most accomplished expedition leaders. In a career spanning over 25 years of high adventure, he has led over 30 major expeditions on 5 of the world continents. He is also an acclaimed television producer, documentary filmmaker, and photojournalist. Ben will discuss a few of his expeditions here and also the upcoming trip. It's going to be very exciting. And he's also a renowned filmmaker. He's shot and produced for networks around the world, including ABC, the Discovery Channel, CTV, and RDI in France. And in 2003 and 2004, he mounted the Discovery Channel expedition to Mount Everest with the purpose of producing the most ambitious documentary ever shot in the Himalayas. And this became a 6-part miniseries titled Everest Ultimate Survival. So I look forward to learning more about that, and welcome to Ben. Rob Turner, he is a professional fitness trainer here at MedCan, where he's been for 8 years, and he's been professionally training for 15 years. His background, I don't think you've summited Everest, but you have summited Kilimanjaro twice, and you're about to leave on his 3rd. Yep. And you're going to discuss what it takes for a team and individuals to succeed in such an environment. So thanks for being here, Rob.
Thank you.
And Jaime Wilson. Jaime Wilson is the Chief Development Officer at the True Patriot Love Foundation. She began her career at Sick Kids Foundation and supported the growth of the peer-to-peer fundraising program Sick Kids Leaders. Following that, she spent some time as a senior development staff person at Villa Charities Foundation, which is an Italian-Canadian organization that supports culturally specific program across the GTA. And you may also recognize the Venetian Ball, which she was responsible for all individual and corporate fundraising. She also has worked with Right to Play, and I'm learning a little bit about Jaime's adventures and expeditions herself. And she also climbed Kilimanjaro, and most recently came from another expedition with True Patriot Love. So hopefully we'll learn more about that today. And we're going to turn into a video before we go to Ben. And here we go. Let's tune in.
Hello, everybody. That was the trailer from a project we did a number of years ago, I guess back in 2012, with the CBC as a signature event, and it was with TPL. And the film that we made documented the story of a dozen soldiers going up to a place called Island Peak, which is very similar to Lobuche East in terms of its altitude. And so what you saw was a lot of the footage that we shot, this was over a couple of years that I got that footage, through the Khumbu Valley. So the expedition itself will take place, it starts in Kathmandu, we fly into the Khumbu Valley where Everest is found. At the very top of the Khumbu Valley is where Everest is, so that's the sort of picket fence. What happens is you will spend the better part of 18 days from Kathmandu to Kathmandu, walking through the middle of the Sherpa culture, working your way up to Everest Base Camp, and then from Everest Base Camp you're going to move over to a mountain called Lobuche East. Now Lobuche East is not a particularly technical mountain to climb, but it is, you know, quite an undertaking. It is difficult for most people their first time through, but definitely doable if a person's committed and with the right training, and obviously you'll have the best support network that you can find with MedCam and TPL, and then the opportunity will be there to go and climb a 20,000-foot mountain. The best part about Lobuche East, and I can't speak enough about it, is we've shot on top of it many times over the years, is the fact that it sits right in front of the Everest Massif, and from it you'll be able to look across to Everest Base Camp and then right up to the summit, as well as the surrounding mountains that sort of make part of that Everest Massif. So it's quite a spectacular sight. The thing that when you're walking up to the Khumbu, and what most people, and this is what makes this trip different, there's a few components that make this trip different and really, really unique and special. So let me first talk about the climb itself. This is an opportunity for you to climb with my team. I'm doing a film next year. 2018 is the 65th anniversary of Sir Edmund Hillary's first ascent, and there's going to be big celebrations over in Nepal, where Hillary and the Hillary family are considered royalty in that country because of all the benefits that were created both from the fame of climbing on Everest, but also just the great work that Edmund Hillary did for the rest of his life, and that his son and granddaughter carry on even today with the Hillary Foundation. So when you go on that during the 65th anniversary, you'll be going up during the time that Everest is being climbed, and that's what my film is about. It's a past, present, future look at Everest. So we're going to take you folks up with us as we're doing a little bit of shooting ourselves around the project, and you'll have this opportunity to be integrated with my team. I will have the best climbing guides and the best climbing Sherpas in the world to help us with the filming, but also to help us with this climb. We've always believed, CAP has made the decision over a decade ago that CAP is my company, Canadian Venture Productions, and every project we do, we made the decision to try and include a legacy component where something of benefit could come from the project other than just the film itself. So that's what we're going to do, and hopefully we get a lot of support here for TPL in the process. So the idea is that you'll go and climb this mountain, Lobuche. You'll get a chance to walk through, and we'll go through the itinerary in a minute. But let me, on a top level, give you the big reason why you should, if you're ever thinking about the Himalayas, if you're ever thinking about Everest, if you're ever thinking about trekking up to Everest, then this would be the one time that you would want to do it. It's special, it's unique. And the reason is that I have Peter Hillary, Sir Edmund Hillary's son, who's a two-time Everest summiter himself and a great adventurer. He's signed on with my company for the spring season next year, and so we have him exclusively, and he's going to be working with me on the film to narrate and to star in the film itself. And at the same time, he's agreed to guide the TPL group up to Everest Base Camp, to walk in effect in his father's footsteps. And then he's entertaining the thought of actually guiding you up Lobuche East. Now he'll make that decision next spring, but that's definitely on the cards. As well as Edmund Hillary, his granddaughter, Amelia Hillary, is also going to be coming along with us. So you get the whole Hillary family on the trip itself. So if you can imagine what it must be like to walk up to Everest, this great iconic place that has so much history. And for those that don't know, Edmund Hillary was ranked in the top 20 most influential people of the 20th century, according to Time magazine. So it's a really, you know, you're walking in the steps of giants when you're doing this. And with the Hillary family as your guide, they'll be able to walk you through what is their second home. They've spent the better part of the last 65 years committed to the Khumbu region, the betterment of the Sherpa people. So when you walk up to Everest Base Camp, you're walking through Main Street of Sherpa Town. You go through a series of Sherpa villages. There's only one trail that goes right through the middle of these villages that take you up to Everest. And so you're actually immersed in this Sherpa culture, everything from their religion, the Buddhism that they practice, and that's important because the mountain itself is considered a god to the Sherpa people. And being taken there by the Hillarys, who are revered in that region for all the good work they do. So to give you an example, some of the highlights to this is that you'll get, there's a level of cachet that you will only be able to get by being guided by Peter Hillary, access into areas or corners of the Sherpa culture that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. So there's a real exclusivity to this particular project next year, and the hope is that you know, if that may make the difference for somebody saying, yeah, I want to be part of this project. I want to have this experience, because I think it'll be tremendous. Another layer to the project is again, you'll be with my team guiding you up to Everest Base Camp and up the mountain itself. And I can't speak highly enough of the people that'll be guiding you. And they're wonderful people, obviously the most skilled people that you can find on the planet. But at the same time, they're wonderful people to spend the trail. And I've been doing this, I don't want to age myself here, but I've been doing this for over 30 years and at a very high level. And one of the things I learned years ago is that the best experiences, certainly not necessarily about a destination or a GPS point, it's about the people that you share these experiences with. These can be seminal moments in people's lives. And when you go through this experience and your life is changed by that experience, that's what the meaningful thing is. And so I can guarantee you that the people you'll be sharing the trail with and sharing this great experience will be impactful and will be meaningful to you, but they'll also just be a heck of a lot of fun as well. So, okay, let's move on to the actual itinerary. This is based on 18 days. You'll fly into Kathmandu. We don't spend a lot of time in Kathmandu initially on the start of the trip, and the reason for this is that there's so much to get done, and we have these great aspirations in terms of the climb. We want to get onto the trail right away. So after a day in Kathmandu, just to get you settled and sort of acclimated to being in Nepal, we'll fly into the Khumbu region. We do a very slow, the key to succeeding in high altitude, on a high altitude peaks, and I'll just touch a little bit about this. There's another slide later on to talk more in depth about altitude, but the key is that, say you take 100% of people, 10% of people who are not used to being in altitude are going to do fantastic. They're going to be sitting there and running up the trail or running up the mountain going, I don't understand what everybody's talking about. Why is everybody moving so slow? We hate those people. Now, there's also 10% of people who are just physiologically not designed to be in altitude. And that's just the way it is, genetics, right? And if you're not blessed with them, you're not blessed with them. There's nothing you can do. All the training in the world isn't going to help you. You just weren't meant to be in high altitude. Now, for the vast majority of us, myself included, that 80% is that if we're given enough time to get up into high altitude, it'll be difficult for sure, and it won't always be fun, but it will be doable. And that's what we've done. And the more time you have to acclimatize, the greater chance you have of having your body adapt to the environment and change with the environment so that physiologically speaking, you'll be able to get to your destination. So that's what we've done. Is we've built in a nice slow itinerary on the trek up to base camp. We've done this for a couple of reasons. One, obviously your safety. We want you to acclimatize, give you the best chance of being acclimatized when we go on the climb and therefore successful. And the second reason is we wanted to build in some extra time. And if you look on the itinerary right now, you'll see that after we walk up to an area on April 4th and 5th and 6th, that area is called Namche Bazaar, Kumjung, and Kunde. And there are three Sherpa villages. And they sit at about between 11,000 feet, roughly 10 to 11,000 feet. And this is the sort of area that Sir Edmund Hillary was sort of based out of over the years and doing all the great work. And we want to be in this area to allow your body to acclimatize, but we also want to use this as a great opportunity for Peter to show you around where his father did all of his great work. So every school that you'll pass in these villages will be a Hillary school. Every hospital that will visit the hospital, Cam and its commitment to good health, we're actually going to go and pop into the hospital at Kunde, and that's a Hillary hospital, and you'll be able to meet the doctors and everything else, so there'll be an interest there. But this is the area we want to spend a few days in for Peter to show you around what his family has been able to accomplish over the years, and it really, again, what is his second home, including his 80-year-old Sherpani grandmother, who's a lovely woman who, just to tell you a quick story, was the wife of Sir Edmund Hillary's right-hand man. I spent a lot of time with Edmund Hillary, and I guided him down the Ganges in India when he was the High Commissioner of India back in the 80s. And we did an expedition. I led it down, and over a campfire and a couple of cocktails, he proceeded to tell me the story of the moment he made his life commitment to helping the Sherpa people and the people in Nepal. And it was after he had summited and got world acclaim, and he came back, and his right-hand man, he said, well, what can I do? And he said, our people have eyes, but they can't see. And so they understood right away that literacy, because before 1953, this was a closed-off area of the world, and that the Sherpa people were, completely isolated to what was happening in the rest of the world. So it's in this 65 years that his work and the change of literacy has created phenomenal changes in that region. So to give you an example, chances are you'll meet a Sherpani doctor. So in 65 years, you go from illiteracy and what was still, and still is, I guess, to a degree, quite a male-oriented society, to a young woman who's actually been educated and is a doctor and has gone back to the valley to help her people. So it's a remarkable story in that sense. Once we go through that area, we're going to go up. One of the days, and for those folks, we go into an area, let me pick the day out here, on April 7th. We trek to a place called Tengboche. Tengboche is a very famous monastery, very, very famous monastery, and it's absolutely spectacular. It sits in a saddle surrounded by the Himalayas. It has a very famous mountain called Amat de Blanc just in the distance. You can see Everest just in the background of it. The reason we're going to stop in there is we're going to get blessed, and we'll have the High Lama. And again, this is a very, this isn't something that happens very often, but we, again, in traveling with the Hillarys and myself and our time in there, we've got an agreement to have the High Lama actually do a private puja. A puja is a ceremony, a Buddhist ceremony, and it's to bring good luck when we go up in the mountains. Again, in the shadow of Everest, Everest being a god, it's good for everybody. And whether you're a practiced Buddhist or not, you do want to do this, because I don't know about it all, in terms of the universe, but before I go into the mountains, I want every blessing I can possibly get. So we'll go and do that. It's a very moving ceremony, and one that, again, whether you're religious, spiritual, or none of the above, I still think it's a very powerful thing for people to go through. I can tell you on a personal level that just being in that environment, there is a sense, there is an energy about it, and hopefully you're able to open yourself up to that experience, because that's what we want. We want you to open up your experience to this and take as much in as you possibly can. And so opening your mind and your soul as you go through this, I think you'll take away a lot of that spiritual impact from the place. So Tengboche, fantastic experience. From there, we'll move up, and again, we'll always keep an eye on how people are doing. You'll be checked twice a day to just see how your numbers are in terms of acclimatizing. So we know, and the guides know exactly how everybody's doing. Make sure you're fighting fit by the time we get up to Everest Base Camp. So we're going to touch up Everest Base Camp, and then we'll move over to Lobuche to actually ascend the mountain itself. Now, Lobuche, as I mentioned earlier, is not a technical climb necessarily, but we will have the ropes. My Sherpa guides who will be moving from Everest and setting up the ropes on Lobuche. And what you'll be expected to do is to climb up with our guides. We have a high guide to client ratio on this, or participant ratio, so everybody can feel very comfortable that they're in super safe hands, and that there's lots of people whose only job is to make sure that you are looked after and nothing bad can happen to you as you go up the climb. As you ascend the ropes, we will be going from what is lovely lower alpine kind of conditions down at Namche, meaning in the tree line, beautiful, the starting of the spring flowers, to being up into the high alpine where it's just rock and ice. And so the climb itself, depending on the winter and the season, because we will assess the mountain before you come over in early April to make sure that everything's stable and that the ice pack and everything's in shape, and then you'll be doing a combination of rock and ice climbing to get to the summit itself. After that, it's a real quick descent, and what we do is we have high altitude helicopters take you back to Kathmandu so that you're in a shower, a sauna, a massage, and a meal, and you'll be headed back home right afterwards. So you go from almost the same day. If the weather cooperates and we can get the choppers the way I've got designed it, and we've done this in the past, we did this with March to the Top in 2012, think how cool that'll be. You go from the summit, and within hours you'll be in a chopper and into a beautiful 5-star hotel and a well-earned massage and hot bath and a really good meal. Okay. What to expect, the sleeping accommodations, a combination of tea house and camping. Mostly tea house is what we're going to go for on this, but again, it depends on a number of factors, the least of which is when we get further up into the high alpine, say within a couple of days of Everest, the tea houses aren't as many and they're not as nice. And so I'm going to be over there filming for 6 weeks in the fall, and I'll check those out personally. And if I feel that your hygiene is better, sleeping in tents, then we'll change the sleeping accommodation to keep you because one of the keys to success on this, you're going to have these great trainers here that can make you absolutely the fittest you can be, and you're going to have the best guides in the world work with you to make sure that you stay safe and acclimatized properly. But one of the things we want to control, because you are going into the third world, is that you're healthy. Because if you get sick, even if it's a GI situation, it just drains you and makes it less likely for you to actually summit. So we want to do that. So one of the big things we look at is making sure that you stay healthy. Life on the trail. We ask you to bring a 50-liter pack, and we'll go through this. For the people that set up, we'll actually have somebody talk to you, walk you through, and get all the equipment. Again, this is you'll have the best support network around to make sure that you have everything you need. And that way, all you are expected to carry is your camera and a couple of layers of clothes and a snack bar during the course of the day on the trail. We like to go with the bigger packs, and would recommend that strongly for anybody who goes on any kind of walking trip, simply because you get into cold conditions. It's just much easier with our little fingers to grab stuff. Okay, so a bigger pack, bigger opening doesn't necessarily mean more weight, and it's just easier to work with. Temperatures, this is a big one because everybody's worried about that. We're Canadian. Geez, this is easy peasy, guys. Everest and the Himalayas are found on the equatorial line, so it's actually quite temperate. It's actually colder in Ottawa, where I live, in the winter than when I've been up on Everest, including the summit. So there you go. If you can take Ottawa in February, you're going to be okay in this area. So it'll be warm during the days in the spring, and it will warm up over the course of the trip. Now, as we get into the higher altitude, obviously, higher we go, the colder it gets. Quite cold at night, but I don't expect to see anything colder than, say, -20, -15 to -20. The big thing will be during the climbing of Lobuche. If the winds pick up, which they always can, especially in the spring, you're in a mountain chain, it can have a bit of a bite. So we expect, we're going to make sure all the equipment and everybody's trained up to be able to forego -15 kind of temperatures. But if we get lucky, a nice clear day, the winds are down, sun's out, you'll be loving it as you walk up to the top of the mountain. Okay, like I said, hard but doable for committed amateurs, but there will be a training camp that will be run through TPL West, which will give you the skills, and we recommend that people, when they go out, they try and learn as much as they can for it. It'll just make your chances of success that much higher. I said success is dependent on acclimatization and fitness. Fitness to a degree, and again, the folks here will get you as fit as you possibly can be, but really altitude is something you can't train for. And what we do is, again, slow protocol on the climb will give you the best chance. The more time you take, the more likely you are to acclimatize, and the more likely you are to succeed. Simple altitude 101 is this. Altitude, think of it as a stressor on the body. That's what it is. And so what you want to do is allow as much time as possible for the body to adapt to that stressor. If you've been in altitude before, that's always a sure sign. Past is prologue in these things. If you've acclimatized well in the past, you'll acclimatize well in the future, most likely. There's never any guarantees. But think of it as a stressor. So your body's really being broken down, and that's why it's so hard in these environments. Okay? So think of altitude as a stressor. We try to create an infrastructure to allow your body to deal with that stress. Ropes are fixed on the mountain. It's safe and secure. You don't have to worry about anything like that. The mountain itself is quite a safe mountain to climb. No risk of avalanche or crevasses. And then we'll be staggering the actual summit bid over 2 days. And the reason for that is we want to make sure everybody has the best chance to succeed. So if some people are not acclimatizing quite as well, we give them an extra day, and that way you can go up. So we'll pick those. Well, that'll be a game time decision on who goes and when they go. But the idea is for us to have 2 staggered. The other thing it does is it doesn't crowd the mountain. So the people who go up will have this feeling like it's not quite as many people up there. Because remember, we have this high guide to client ratio. So that just means we want to keep the numbers limited for those people who are climbing up on the mountain itself. Okay, so it's staggered over 2 days.
Thank you so much, Ben. It sounds like you could talk about this for hours, so I would love to hear more. So if anyone does have questions, feel free to send them via the system or contact Megan in the email provided. All right, we're going to move over to Rob, who's going to talk about the fitness aspect.
Thank you. Just a quick introduction. I've been a fitness trainer here at MedCan for over 8 years now, and recently assigned the position of Kickstart Coordinator. For those that don't know, the Kickstart program is an initiative that encourages clients. We present a challenge for clients. We train together, and then we go and complete the challenge together. In my case, I've had the privilege, as Tanya said, I've had the privilege to lead 2 teams of clients up Kilimanjaro, and in a week I'll be leading another team for my third summit. For those of you who aren't aware, Kilimanjaro has an elevation of 19,300 feet. So I have some experience what it feels like up there and how taxing it can be. The best way to prepare yourself is to be as fit as possible. That being said, as Ben mentioned a couple of times, you really can't control how you're going to feel with elevation sickness. Everyone's going to have different reactions to it. You're going to have some headaches, some nausea, some dizziness. How severe, everyone's going to be a bit different. So my train of thought with all of my clients to date have been just get yourself as fit as possible before you take on such a long and tough challenge. As well as the elevation, you're putting long hours on the mountain. It's cold, it's going to be dusty, you don't sleep as well as you normally do. Your appetite is usually a bit diminished, so over a week, or in this case, it's going to be over 2 weeks, you're going to be fatigued just from that alone. So increase your chances of making the summit by being fit.
And what are the pictures that we're looking at here? Just balance, core, lower body. You would work with a trainer. Is that what you'd advise?
Yeah, so part of the package, I believe, is going to be 3 sessions here at MedCan. I'm not quite sure who the personal trainer is going to be at this time. But what you can expect is when you come in, every trainer will run you through some key movement patterns and exercises that might point out any weaknesses or imbalances you might have, and might hinder your ability for hiking long distances on a steady incline, such as this. Then the trainer will develop a program based on that analysis and help iron out any of those weaknesses and get you mountain ready.
Nice. And there's also a nutrition session?
There is.
All right. So yeah, so we have registered dietitians here at MedCan, and oftentimes they work with the personal trainers. So, well,
Great.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Rob. All the best with your Kilimanjaro climb. And if anyone has any questions, they can send you an email.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go to one more video.
A lot of things change, you know, when you're used to going 200 miles an hour and all of a sudden life has other plans in store for you and you come to a dead stop.
Everybody comes home from a trauma different. We want to be able to just walk out into the community and just be normal. There's a lot of self-doubt when I first got home with my injury, but I'd like to go challenge it. I would have loved to have a phone number just to call, because you can only burn people out so much. Like,
I am thinking of my family. They're behind me every step of the way, almost pushing me up the mountains, but
it would have been really easy to turn around, but for lifetime memories, 3 hours of pain. We'll talk again when we get to the top. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. You just gotta rely on mindset that, you know, you can do this.
It's an adrenaline rush, it's team spirit, and it's getting to the top no matter what.
I'm going to pass the mic over to Jaime.
Thank you, and thanks to both you guys for speaking today. Just quickly, I think it would be helpful for those of you that don't know, True Patriot Love has been around since 2009. We're a national charity. We've dispersed more than $18 million supporting 100 programs across Canada, and primarily in the areas of mental health, veteran transition, and family supports. I'll also add in physical rehabilitation as well. So that said, I mean, you can see the slide here, about 1,000 military personnel are medically released each year, 25% of which are struggling with operational stress injuries such as PTSD, and again, 13.5% have been diagnosed, and that's not to say the folks that have not been diagnosed as well. So the expeditions themselves, as you've seen, we've been producing them in conjunction with folks like Ben, as well as MedCan as a proud supporter since 2012. I'll speak to, so there's many objectives that we're trying to accomplish through these expeditions. The obvious one is, you know, summiting, reaching the magnetic North Pole was one of our expeditions. This year we're doing 3 across Canada to celebrate Canada's birthday, and each of them has, you know, the final end to your journey that's geographical, of course. On top of that, from a organizational point of view, we are pairing business leaders in the communities across Canada with ill and injured veterans and currently serving members of the military. So injured being both physical and most of them do have some form of PTSD or another operational stress injury such as anxiety, you know, sleep disorder, etc. And often those go hand in hand. So you know, the objectives are to level the playing field, essentially. So we're teaming people together from 2 totally different lifestyles, civilian and military, both of which are unaware of the challenges each face. You know, you're putting them in an environment where they're challenging themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and you're in it together. And it's very much of learning about each other. It's very much reminiscent of being in a military kind of culture, is one for all for one. type of feel. And you really get a good sense of, from a civilian point of view, of the benefits, the skill sets that a veteran and military personnel can bring to corporate Canada, for example. That said, we're raising awareness as well. We're reducing the stigma of mental health and mental health disorders, particularly with military personnel. And we're also creating organic mentorship opportunities that are long-lasting. So out of these amazing and challenging journeys come this organic relationship that happens, where you're both kind of, it's a reciprocal mentorship type of relationship. So, and they're far-reaching, that's for sure. So our expeditions have just, if you're a numbers person, they've impacted 50 veterans, engaged 75 influential Canadian business leaders, and that's not even capturing the folks that they're talking to within their organizations or their networks. So you could increase that number by 100-fold, I'm sure. And then again, as mentioned before, increased awareness of the challenges of military personnel, and also the skill sets and benefits of having perhaps a military veteran or personnel hired within your organization.
So we have some time for some questions. So, oh, sorry, there's one more slide.
Okay, I mean, it's just a numbers slide as well. I mean, we've raised a total of $6 million, and that's probably a point I should have mentioned before. In addition to all of the objectives I mentioned before, we are fundamentally raising money as well. True Patriot Love raises money, and we disperse to organizations across Canada, as I mentioned, that help veterans and their families. So there is a fundraising requirement, and stressing how important that fundraising requirement is. It's not only developing these relationships and these organic one-on-one mentorship opportunities, but we're also providing funds so we can provide access to programs for these folks, and not only the folks on the expedition, but many that are releasing from the military and need our help.
So for specific information on the fundraising requirements or the costs of the trip, anyone interested can email Megan at the email address on your screen, and mcdonald@truepatriotlove.com, or the phone number is 647-808-3297. So we do have a few time for questions. Are there any, Jaime, you've been on so many expeditions now. What would you say is one of a common some feedback that you get for people who do this?
I mean, I think, and I just wrote down a few words that Ben said, meaning, life-changing, legacy. I mean, absolutely, the relationships, the journey, the challenge will change your life. I mean, it changes your perspective on how you look at the world, how you prioritize your life. It'll give you meaning. It is absolutely life-changing. It's not just, some of the people that I recently participated on the Cabot expedition, which was the sea kayaking expedition to Fogo Island with True Patriot Love. And, many of the folks are like, I came into this, and I'm going to be quite frank and honest, that I came to do it because it's a cool trip, or I wanted to stay at the Fogo Island Inn, or something completely honest. And at the end of the trip, they said it turned out to be something that was unexpected, entirely different, that I will never forget. So I think going in, you tend to focus on, am I fit enough? Do I have the right gear? Can I acclimatize and fundraising and all of those things? But I think, and this happened with the Antarctica expedition last year, is people came out of it saying, I never expected how much it would change my life, and I'm really grateful for that. Mm-hmm. So
Well, actually, that's my last question, and maybe Ben or Rob can speak to this. Just for people who desire, they've signed up, they signed up to today's session, but they just don't know if they can do it. Perhaps they have, 20 pounds to lose, or they have a bum knee, or they just don't know if they'll be able to do it mentally. It might be too scary. What do you have any success stories or any references?
In my experience with these things, and this goes back to what was spoken about before about being involved with this level of support and the kind of energy that gets created during the expedition itself. I liken it a bit to the peloton in the Tour de France. When somebody drops out of the peloton, even though they're a world-class cyclist, they find it very, very difficult to catch up to the peloton. And it's this idea that once you get dropped by the pack or dropped by the group, it's a struggle to go through. And it's a vision that I think can be carried for anyone going through life, that we're always stronger when we work together towards something. And when you have that group, because the truth is on the expedition next year, if you come, everybody at some point will say to themselves, I actually paid to do this. I actually, what was I thinking, but that's where the bite of the exercise, that's what gives it its teeth. That's what it makes it meaningful, is you actually have to go through this. But the key is you're not going through it alone. You have this group, and it's this group, a spirit that will actually carry you through those hard times, just as it does in life. So from that standpoint, yeah, it's one where, in my experience, working with groups like that, working with people who are very supportive, just gives you a greater chance of success, number one, for your own personal success, but in some ways it expands it because it allows you to open up your heart and open up your experience to other people and all the rest of it. So what I would say, just as sort of as a closing here, a couple of things. First one is, can't stress it enough. This is a world-class trip. And it's a world-class experience. You won't be able to get it, somewhere else, and you won't be able to get it a year, 2 or 3. This is it. So if you were thinking of doing this, like I said, I think this is the one time you really want to do it. The second thing I want to say is that part of the reason we set up these projects like this, and TPL sees the same vision I do, that these things are win-win-win. And it's rare that you're going to be part of an experience where you can actually say to yourself, I'm being changed. Hopefully we do see that, or you do see it as a seminal moment in your life, or a changing moment in your life. But you have that experience on a very deep personal level. But at the same time, you'll be sharing it with people who are going through that same experience. Their lives are being changed. Fundamentally, by participating and the cost that's incurred and the money that's raised, you're going to see the direct results. So the soldier who's actually you're sharing the tent with, or the soldier you'll be climbing with on that mountain, you're changing. You'll see it. You'll fundamentally see the change that they're going through. So if you're saying, hey, I'm doing this because I'd like to see how far I can push myself. Imagine when you can say to yourself, I had a direct effect on that person beside me as they try to go through this transition. And then you can also say to yourself, you know what, that's the bricks and mortar, for lack of a better word. You're seeing it firsthand. But imagine the amount of soldiers that are changed through TPL and all their different programs from the money that you raise. So you see it on a very tangible level. Like you'll be able to smell it because you'll be sleeping beside them. Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's the bigger view of life, right? And so it's a win-win-win. Everybody wins. You'll be able to win on the personal level, the soldiers themselves will be able to win, and then all these other soldiers and their families will benefit from come along on the trip.
Well, thank you so much, Ben. I think we'll end there. Ben, Rob, Jaime, thank you very much for your time, and to everyone who joined us, thank you, and please be sure to reach out if you have any questions. Hope you have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.